Welcome to our short presentation and training on online tutoring here at Targeted Provision. There was online tutoring before COVID-19, but it's now risen in popularity as a way to conduct one-to-one tutoring with young people. And the possibilities of what you can do online have really increased. We'll give you some guidance on setting up your online tuition in order for you to achieve successful sessions where young people are engaged and learning. Unfortunately, there's a myth that online is an easy option to face-to-face, as you can conduct it from your home. However, we've observed online lessons where the young person is disengaged, not learning, and in fact, even confused as to what's going on. That young person is being let down by their tutor, being unprepared and unfamiliar with the technology they're using. Online lessons take as much preparation and sometimes even more than face-to-face. So what are we going to cover to help you achieve a successful lesson? First, we'll talk about some protocols that you must follow when teaching online. This is for your safety as much as the young person's safety. Then we'll look at some possible platforms that you can use. And finally, we'll take a look at how you can make the most out of your session. The first thing that needs to be remembered is that teaching well online is not easy and practice is required. You cannot afford to get it wrong with the young people we're tutoring. Many have had bad experiences in education, and building a good relationship with them is vital to successful engagement. The first few sessions will set the scene for the success of your tuition. We've had examples of tutors who've had technical difficulties in their first few lessons, or have conducted a meeting style lesson, and the young person has just refused to engage again. Remember, with a face-to-face session, you can keep turning up to see if the young person is there. But online, they can just refuse to log on. Sometimes this results in the tuition being cancelled and that young person has lost out on an opportunity. Building that relationship where the young person can trust you and feels confident that you know what you're doing is vital. Our young people can be very anxious about meeting you or even interacting online. We sometimes assume that because their generation has grown up with technology, it will be easy for them. Now remember, for safeguarding purposes, we do not allow tuition to be from your bedroom or from the young person's bedroom. If you have personal photos that can be seen on the camera, please put a filter or a background on, and I'll explain about that a little bit later. Many of our young people will not be patient if you get it wrong. This can cause anxiety because they feel out of control. They'll lose respect for you and may even get bored if they're waiting for you to produce some work online. For some, this may result in a meltdown and possibly with them ending the session with you. So let's have a look at a few simple but successful ways you can alleviate the possibility of things going wrong. So ensure you turn up a few minutes before the start time of the session. This will help build confidence in you as their tutor if you're there before they show up, and you'll show them that they're important to you. The young person shouldn't be waiting for you to show up. Once they're there, spend a few minutes chatting to them, easing them into the session. If it's the first session, then show them around the platform and what you might be using. Now, if your young person does not turn up for your session, please email or call their parent carer to see if everything is okay. Please stay online for half an hour. Give them the chance to come online. If they're still not turned up, then please email their parent carer to let them know that you've shut down the session, but you'll remain available for the full duration of that session. So if the young person suddenly decides that they want to log on for the last 5 minutes of their session, you're there available for them. Ensure that you have all your materials ready and you're not searching for things during the session. Face-to-face or in a classroom, you'd have everything printed out and everything ready. So online, you can have all the tabs ready along the top of the screen for easy access. Have a few spare things ready to do if you need to give that young person maybe a break, a game, or even a change from the planned work. However, do be careful that you don't have any personal information on your screen that may show up when you screen share. Although here at Targeted Provision, we tend to use Zoom, and we will give you the link for that one. If you can, use the platform that the young person is familiar with. Again, this can help alleviate any anxiety that the young person may be feeling. You'll be told which platform you need to use when you sign up. Some schools may be using Bramble or may ask you to use their Microsoft Teams account, and you'll be told before you start. It's good practice to make your session as interactive as possible. Vary what you do and how you do it. The session shouldn't look like a lecture. The young person won't want to just listen passively to you because they'll soon shut down quickly. You can recreate a lot of what you would do face-to-face. If you decide to show a video, share that video and watch it with the young person. Don't just send a link to them and expect them to watch it and tell you when they've finished. Watching it interactively means you can pause it, you can talk about various things, and they can feel that you're involved with their learning. Interactive whiteboards means that you and the young person can work together on problems. Writing on a piece of paper or a physical whiteboard and holding it up to the screen means that you risk the young person missing something because you've not held it up correctly, or perhaps the light reflects off it, making it impossible for them to see. Make sure you've got a good internet connection so that nothing is missed by that young person. They'll soon become disengaged if they're struggling to follow you. It's also very important that you keep your camera on. This is for safeguarding purposes, but it's also so that the young person knows that they have your full attention. It can make them feel like you've walked out or you're not interested in them if you turn your camera off. However, you may find that they wish to have their camera off, and that's fine. Direct facial contact can cause them anxiety, and some of our young people can't cope with that. And therefore, allow them to have their cameras off, and then maybe as they get to know you, they may put them on. If you were working face-to-face with them, you would probably be working side to side and not directly face-to-face. So it's an unusual situation for a lot of them. Remember, it's good practice to have a business email address that you're using for sending the links, so that your personal information is not sent out and kept by people after you've finished the referral. Please ensure that you send your link to the session with plenty of time. At least 24 hours is really good practice. No contact should be made directly with the young person via their mobile or their email address, unless you have expressed permission from the primary carer to do so, an email or in writing. And even then, CC in either the primary carer or the social worker or us. But do avoid this if at all possible, and as I say, ensure that the parents and carers are copied into any of your emails. COVID-19 means that people have become relaxed about where they conduct virtual meetings from in their house. And we've seen many a meeting in bedrooms, in cupboards, all sorts of places. But as I've said previously, it is essential for safeguarding purposes that neither you or the young person conduct the session from the bedroom. If you were going to their house to conduct it face to face, you wouldn't be going into their bedroom, and the same applies to online. And as I've said before, please ensure that you have no personal information or pictures showing behind you. At targeted provision, we don't allow lone working, and therefore you must ensure that there's a responsible adult in the vicinity during your online lesson. Asking to speak to that responsible adult at the beginning and the end of the session can help ascertain this. Okay, let's look at some of the platforms and software that can be used for tutoring online. There are many platforms available and they're increasing all the time. But at TP, we do use Zoom so that the sessions are recorded and kept for safeguarding purposes and lesson observations. However, as you can see here, there are other options: Google Meet, Adobe Connect, Microsoft Teams, Bramble. They're just some of the common ones. And as I've said before, you may be asked to use one of those by the school that you're working in. Now, let me just quickly run through what Zoom looks like if you've never used it before, and show you some of the options that it can give you. So this is a screen that you might see without my camera on, and so you're not seeing me. But along the bottom, there are some of the options. You've got your audio and your video to start with. And those can be adjusted if you're having problems with sound, or the young person may have put their camera off. I've asked you not to put your camera off, so you would put yours on. And this is the place where you can choose a virtual background or just a filter to filter out what is behind you so that the young person can't see that. Now, also along the bottom, we have a place that talks about the participants. There's only one of me in this room, but you will have two when you have your young person in. And if you haven't sent the invite to them, which you should have done before, but if you haven't, or they've lost the invite or disappeared, or you do need to invite someone else in, this is a place where you can just click on there and invite another person in. Then there's the option to use the chat bar. Now, some of our young people are very nervous to start with. They don't like their camera on, and they even don't like to talk through the audio. So although it's not ideal, sometimes the way to introduce them to things is to talk to them through the chat. It's good to encourage them to put their mic on, and if you can persuade them eventually, then that's good. But if they feel comfortable through the chat bar, that may be the way that you need to communicate to start with. You also have an option to create some polls. So if you're doing a lesson and you want them to answer some questions, some preset questions, they might like doing it this way, and you can set them up before. You can have multiple choice questions, and you can just flick these on and then they can answer them, and then you can talk through the answers that they give you. That's just one way to do it. Then sharing your screen. If you share your screen, you can set your options so only you can share, or you can set it so that your young person can share their screen as well if you need to see something that they're doing. Probably best to keep it that just you share for the time being, and then swap it over to all participants if you need the young person to share as well. Those are the main things you'll use. When you are sharing, there will be other options that come up. You'll be allowed to annotate. There's also the whiteboard as well that you can use. but I'm going to show you some other options for a whiteboard. I use bit paper, and I find it a little bit more flexible than using the whiteboard on Zoom. So I'm going to show you that in a minute. Okay, let's have a look at some of the things that you might want to show to your young person. I've got my tabs already along the top, and therefore I can go straight away to the first question that I'd like them to answer. Now, when you're sharing screen, you can use the remote control, and you can actually give them the control. So as long as the screen is cut off, that they can't control the tabs outside or anything else that you don't want them to control, then you can give them the control of the mouse, and you can see exactly what they are filling in. And as they're answering the questions, then you can follow along, which is a very good way to do it. If you could play games, and you can watch them as they match things up. Okay, so this is you need a lot of practice doing this sort of stuff, and it's worth sitting down with a family friend or maybe one of your children and running through a lesson. If you've never done a lesson before, try things out, see what works, do it before your actual lesson, otherwise you'll probably make a mess of it. You can share various exam questions, etc. with them. You might just want to run through, talk through them, but you might want to actually put it on the whiteboard. And I'm going to show you here bit paper. Now I've copied and pasted a question over here to bit paper, and I can write on here. And the young person can as well. Bit paper, it's called a paper, although it's a whiteboard. And if you share the link with your young person, then you can both actually write on the board at the same time. Or you can, I'll show you, you can lock the board and you just write on it and they can watch. But it's very useful to be able to see what your young person is doing. If you just ask them to write the answer on a piece of paper in front of them, you won't be able to follow where they're making mistakes. So it's very useful to have an interactive whiteboard. Over here on bit paper, we've got various options where you can upload your files beforehand and get everything ready. And then you can pull these files onto the whiteboard. So this whiteboard was blank before I pulled this question on. And you can have those all ready to go. So you can be very, very efficient. Bit paper is useful, especially for maths, because you can put backgrounds and grids on it. Another thing that's very useful with bit paper is that you can create PDFs at the end, and you can record your young people's work, and they can even create a PDF. And so they can print it off. So that's very, very useful. The other thing here, I talked about, you can lock the paper, and therefore, if you've got a young person who likes to scribble over what you're doing, you can actually lock it and then allow them to do stuff when they want to do the stuff. Okay. When you use this as a class, then sometimes it can be distracting because there's lots of cursors on there. So this is just an extra option here to get rid of the cursors. You can change colors of your cursors, all very, very useful. And then along the bottom, if you decide you're going to use this piece of software, go on it and have a little play. There's shapes you can do, you can change your size of pen, you can color, you can do straight lines with a ruler. And therefore that helps you. You can even type in if you want to type. And there's an option as well for some maths equations if you're going to do that. What's also very useful is you can move it all up and then you can carry on. You can also create, I'll bring that one down, you can also move on to a new page and start something different. If perhaps you were teaching maths, you'd have a maths page and then an English page. So there's lots of options. And if you do decide to use bit paper, then do play with it beforehand. Make sure you're familiar with it before you give it to your young person. There are various options for paying for subscription for bit paper, but probably for what you need to do, you can go for the free option. Now, if you wish to share your resources before a lesson, which you might want to get them to print something out before your lesson, then you can email them to the young person's parent or carer, ask them to print it out. Or also you could use something like Google Classroom to safely share your resources. If you want the young person to send something back to you, Google Classroom is a way to do that. So let's just recap the best way to get the most out of your session and give your young person the best possible chance of succeeding and engaging with you. So the first point is be prepared. Practice your session, as I've said, with someone else beforehand if you're going to introduce a new method of working. Have everything you need open in the tabs along the top, so your young person is not left waiting for you to find something or to Google something. But also be prepared to be adaptable when the lesson's not going as you planned and you need to change your approach. Now, do discover the young person's most comfortable method of communicating with you. Being online for many of them can be a very daunting experience. It can be more intimidating than sitting side by side with someone in a room. That's surprising, but facing someone face to face and having eye-to-eye contact is often a little bit too much for them. So as I've said, allow them, if they need to have the camera off. You can still communicate, you can still see that they are acknowledging you and they are interacting with you. As I've said, some young people will only communicate through the chat facility, and you'll need to build up confidence before they talk to you, but take time and they will. Please don't force that young person to chat before they're ready or to have their camera on before they're comfortable to do it. Make sure that your session is varied, as staring at a screen for an hour or 2 hours can be really hard work for both you and the young person. It's good to put breaks in for the young person, just as you would if you were teaching face-to-face. This is one of the reasons that we ask for a responsible adult to be in the vicinity, allowing for short breaks to take place where necessary. It's good to have an adult helping the young person where needed, but if they begin to hinder the young person's progress with you, then please do let us know. So as I've spoken about, you can use an interactive whiteboard. You can use the ones that are available on the platform, or perhaps you want to use a different one. And I've shown you just an example today of bit paper and what it can be used for. You can allow your young person to take control. So if there's something that you want them to fill in, or you want them to draw lines on, or you even got a drawing that you'd like them to complete, then allow them that to take control of your screen and to control it for themselves. Give them short videos as an alternative to the two of you talking. Then a short video can give them a break and also a different way of learning. Online games, there's so many available now. Do your research, make sure that you've played it before you use it with the young person, just to make sure that it's suitable. But there's a variety of really good educational online games that you can play. And finally, it's good to keep a record of your work with a young person. And as I've shown you that some whiteboards, such as the bit paper, allow you to create a PDF of all that's been done, nice and simple, and then it can be stored or it can be printed off. And so it can be kept by you or the young person. Now, if you do take screenshots of what you've done, because this is one way to record it, please make sure that you only screenshot the work, not you or the young person. Again, this is for safeguarding purposes. If you've got any questions or having listened to this, please then email us back at Targeted Provision and we'll attempt to answer anything or give you further help if you need. And finally, there's just a few useful links there that you might want to look at. The bit paper link. There's a teaching tutorial for Zoom, which goes into a bit more detail than I did. And then a short course teaching you about tutoring online. Thank you for your time, and I hope your first session goes really well.